introduction of ageless wisdom. I want you to understand very clearly that the secret is not the final word on the subject matter. I want you to know that the secret is not new, neither is it a secret. This knowledge has always been accessible to any person who is willing to seek it, to use it, and more importantly, to respect the power which came with this use. The secret has been known by many different names throughout the years. And the secret has been written about in many different books. I want to just share with you some of the references which Rhonda Byrne borrowed from as she produced The Secret. So you'll see that this is ageless wisdom. There's a little tiny book called The Kabbalah by 3 initiates. It contains The Secret. Okay? That information is in this little book which was written over 80 years ago. There's another book written by Manly P. Hall, 1929. Manly P. Hall produced this thick volume, which is a masterpiece, The Secret Teachings of Ageless Wisdom. It's an incredible book. It deals with the secret. He's got a chapter in there on the Emerald Tablet. And he says, according to his research, that the Emerald Tablet is a fraud. It's not a legitimate tablet. He also talks, and this is in 1929. He also references other tablets from Kemet, which are as important, if not more important, than the so-called Emerald Tablet. Great piece of book, great piece of work. It takes time to get through, but it's an invaluable study. There's another book, Deepak Chopra. All right? He wrote a book several years ago called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. The secret is in that book. There's a book that an elder brother in Philadelphia introduced me to about 3 years ago called Psycho-Cybernetics. And this book deals with a breakdown. The revised version is called The New Psycho-Cybernetics. But any version is an adequate text to read and study. It deals with the mind, how the mind functions, and how you can program your mind to achieve specific things. This is all scientific. This is all valid science, valid realities. All right? And my favorite pre-secret book, was a book that I read in 1978 called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. So it's less than 100 pages. It's a small book. You buy that book, you read that book, study that book. Don't read it, you have to study it. Read after about the 3rd read, it will kick in. And you'll find yourself thinking different thoughts and attracting certain things into your life. So this information is real. It has been out here since the beginning of time. I want us to realize and understand that all of these books talk about universal laws, how they operate, how they affect us, and how we can apply these laws in our lives in order to achieve prosperity by learning to apply these principles. These books and others like them teach us that there's an aspect to the universe that functions like a magnet. We project our thoughts into this magnetic universe, which then amplifies these thoughts and sends them back to us tenfold. Infused with power. This is the nature of the universe in which we live, not the world, but the universe in which we live. We will either be empowered or disempowered depending on our awareness of the power of our thoughts. This secret information, this knowledge teaches us that we are the creators of our destiny. We are the creators of our destiny. And so the essence of it deals with the fact that much of the joy and pain, much of the wealth and poverty, much of the health and disease that we experience throughout our lives is fueled by the thoughts that we create and we attract to us. We are the source of it. This is a profound truth which affects everyone everywhere, regardless of your race, regardless of your sex, your nationality. It transcends religion. And it addresses our true reality as spiritual beings having a human experience. That is who we are. Yes. And so there are forces at play within this nation and throughout the world who don't want you to know who you really are. Yes, yes. What you are capable of doing. That is why this information has been suppressed. That is why people who talk about this information have been referred to as kooks, blasphemers. In other words, the people conjure in order to separate you from the power that you have. So as human beings, we all breathe the same air. We all see the same sun. We are all ruled by the same spiritual forces within the universe, whether we know it or not, whether we believe it or not. And what's significant is that most sources agree that this knowledge was first codified and practiced in Egypt over 5,000 years ago. That's the focal point. All of these books, all of these teachings takes us back to the Nile Valley, takes us back to Egypt. For over 3,000 years, the ancient Egyptians studied the secrets of the universe. And this knowledge, this research was stored in Browder, the house of life, the temples, the houses of life, which were built all along the Nile River. And this knowledge was taught to hundreds of generations of Egyptians who learned at a very early age how to apply these principles in their lives. For over 3,000 years, the United States of Egypt was the brightest light in antiquity. Very much like America is the brightest light right now. People came from all over to get a piece of this light, to get a piece of this information. This ancient country was originally known as Kemet. Kemet was to the ancient world what the U.S. is to the modern world. Foreigners came from the four corners of the earth to Kemet to bow at the feet of African kings and queens, to submit themselves to testing so that they would be allowed to study within Browder, the temples of life, the houses of life. And so some of them were brought into the temples and taught this information. The important thing for us to understand is that invaders came too. First the Hyksos, then the Persians, then the Greeks, then the Romans, and then other invaders. And each invading army took secrets and fragments of secrets out of Kemet, out of the Nile Valley, back to their homeland, where they were heralded as great philosophers, physicians, scientists, and thinkers. It's important for us to realize that we've been taught very little about the majesty of Kemet. Very little in our public school systems, and especially in our churches. Instead, we've been fed a steady diet of misinformation about Egypt and old wicked Pharaoh. And let me just share something with you. It's important to deal with certain terminology. Pharaoh is not a Kemetic word. Pharaoh is a word that was introduced to the world by Asiatics, the so-called Hyksos, or shepherd kings, who invaded Kemet, one of the first invaders of Kemet. And they used that word Pharaoh to describe the rulers of Kemet. Anybody who has any knowledge of history should know that that is an illegitimate word. More specifically, the word Pharaoh is a word that was used to describe the house that the king of Kemet lived in. See, the king of Kemet lived in a palace which was called Browder, which means the great house. So what these foreigners did was to take that term, great house, and use it to describe the person who lived in the house and resided over